Hello and welcome to the Varietal Show. My name's Rory. My birthday's on Saturday, and I started this channel 2 years ago, pretty much today. So this is our second anniversary celebration, and also this month we crossed 100 subscribers on YouTube, which sounds really minor, I realize, especially in a range of, YouTube getting like 2 million and so on subscribers. But I think for the niche things that I'm doing, like solo tabletop RPGs and reading old folklore and stuff like that, I am very pleased to see that 100 people even care about it. I mean, I had a guess that in the entire world there must be some minor 0.5% or whatever else that liked the things I liked. And if you're watching this, that means you do too. And I guess I want to say off the top that I actually find it incredibly touching. I don't think I'll ever make $1 million doing this or anything like that. But it is extremely pleasing to show up each week and know that at least some people in the world enjoy my silly little ride-alongs and old folklore. So if that's you, whether you lurked or whether you joined the comments like Big Drew and GS and all of that, thank you so much. It's very touching, and we're going to basically make you regret supporting me by doing more dumb stuff tonight. So what Varietal Show is a ride-along stream, and if you've come here because you like the folklore, which is definitely the biggest draw that we have on the channel, that's Tuesday nights. There's a whole playlist of it you can listen through. There's quite a bit. The show this week isn't doing amazing, and I have my suspicions as to why. One of which is that the compression algorithm for YouTube brutalized my audio and made it kind of fuzz, and I recorded right after to check locally to see if it's a problem, and it doesn't seem like it is. So I'm curious, guys, is my voice buzzing on the loud notes right now? Just let me know if the audio is messy, because I'll be frustrated because there isn't really much I can do about that end of it. It's not coming from this side of the house. Wow, there's already a lot of text in there. Okay, Big Drew says, I love dogs. This will be fun. There's lots of sort of GS and Big Drew saying hello and so on. Big Drew is defining his character, so let me know about that. I have a pinned comment in the chat to that regard, because if you want to be a part of the anti-capitalist dog pile, let me know and I'll include your character in the story that we're going to write together. GS says, a hippie-ish Saluki. Saluki's a deep... Saluki's a deep pull. I bet most people don't even know what a Saluki is. Let me see if I can find a picture of it. Saluki's a dog, by the way, folks. I used to show dogs, if you folks didn't know. I was a part of a junior kennel club, local here. And I used to have a pug, which is why I have a pile of stuffed pugs behind me. I think over the years, I have probably drifted more towards cats. But I don't dislike dogs. This is a Saluki. Beautiful dog. But GS is right to have to point out that it seems like it would be a little hippie-ish. I agree. Okay. So I don't want to waste too much time because we actually have quite a bit to do, but if you're curious, down in the description below, there will be, if you're not watching this live, there will be timestamps. You can jump ahead to whichever part of the show interests you. If you just want to hear the story we come up with at the end, and we will have a story at the end, you can jump ahead to that. You can't right now for me because I'm live. Yeah, which means it is time for us to discuss tonight's litgames. Litgames stands for literature games. Literature games is my kind of catch-all phrase for games that are primarily about writing or sort of expressing yourself through writing in one way or another. And over the 2 years that the show's been running, we've done a variety of things, from just having groups of people come in and contribute 5 minutes at a time, to dice charts and whole games that I created myself. And quite recently, I discovered that after many years of just inventing a show each week, there are a bunch of people that have already put together games that have the same goal on itch.io. And we've been playing games from 2 massive collections. One is it's Solo But Not Alone 3, which is a package on itch.io of 150 solo RPGs that the funds of which go towards mental health charity. And the one we're playing tonight, though, which is called Daggers and Dalmatians, comes from the currently running Tabletop RPGs for Trans Rights in Florida package, which is very close, by the way, to reaching its goal, I think, of about $250,000. And you get 500 tabletop RPGs with that. And some of those are single pages, like we're going to see today, but some of them are like 300-page books. They're like full tabletop RPGs, not just solo. GS says, now I'm curious, what dog is a capitalist? A Chihuahua? Well, anything that is arbitrarily possessive. The Big Drew says we've done a varietal of things. We have indeed. What we're going to do tonight, though, is anti-capitalist dogs. So I lied to you a bit in the beginning of this. This actually isn't a solo RPG, tabletop RPG, but I don't see any reason why we can't make it work that way. The way that I'm going to make it work that way, though, is I'm using some rolling tables from a game called Blades in the Dark. I won't go out of my way to explain it, other than to say it's a Victorian table-themed, sort of Victorian steampunky, semi-magical tabletop RPG about being criminals, kind of Victorian era, maybe a little later, London type setting. It's all sort of fictionalized. If you ever want to see a Blades in the Dark playthrough, how that game plays, which is quite a bit different and more involved than anything we do here, I personally recommend Outside Extras, Luke Westaway's playthrough, which he's been doing a couple of seasons of. It's a great fun. Outside Extra is a lot of fun. It is probably my favorite channel on YouTube. But anyways, Daggers and Dalmatians is technically, you need a GM, is the point. The person who controls and gives the obstacles. But instead of doing that, because we are just using it as a way to write stories, we are going to roll when we reach obstacles or when we feel like the story needs some obstacles. It will be a short story about a pack of dogs sneaking out at night to deconstruct some aspect of capitalist infrastructure in a city. So if that's interesting to you, stick around. And the thing that I'm going to say, there's a bunch of ways that you can contribute in chat here. You can give me your dog character, your name, some attributes about it, and I'll try to include them as characters in my story. The other thing that you can do is you can come up with potential problems as we go through, which I'll be rolling my dice against to see if we succeed or not. And you can also... there's lots of places you can help with this one. I don't know if we'll be within an hour, but hey, it's my birthday on Saturday, so I'm spreading my wings. If I'm alone at an hour and a half, whatever. Okay, so in terms of the game, I learned over the past month that there is almost no point in me explaining the rules. Nobody can follow them. And yet... I keep trying. The way this game works is you create a character, and then your DM gives you a scenario, and you as a pack of dogs try to get in. And as you encounter a problem, like there's a fence, there's a dog, another dog that's literally licking a boot. I'm giving away my best stuff. Whatever else. That isn't on your side, or there's, whatever gets in the way of us doing what we want to do. we would roll 2 what are called D4 dice. Now, if you've never seen these before, they're very weird looking dice. Whatever point is up on this particular model is the roll. These in the D&D circle, by the way, are called... Come on, focus. It's not going to focus. These are called caltrops. Knocked over my own light. If you don't know what a caltrop is, that's a caltrop. They're called caltrops because if you forget them on the ground and step on them, they're extraordinarily painful. And that's the point of a caltrop. They're made to flatten tires. They're sharp, and they're also roughly shaped the same. So the reason why I mentioned this is because this system that this is built on is called the Caltrop Core, and that's the name. That's why it's called that, because it's a D4 system, and we call those in the tabletop circles, we call them caltrops. Fun facts, but not important. That's about it. All that's really going to happen is we're going to hit obstacles as a group of dogs. I'm going to roll these D4, and that'll determine our success or failure, and then we'll write a story about those successes or failures. Now, to help us out, I'm going to read a little bit of writing I did before we started about my own character. And while I do that, if you want to flesh out some dogs in the dog pack, and put them in chat, I'll try to include them in my dog pack. If we'd have a name for this dog pack, that would be great. But here's my introduction to the world as I see it for our Daggers and Dalmatians ride-along that we're going to do. The first thing you'd notice about Pumbaa, I should mention, Pumbaa was the name of my pug that I owned. He's been dead for about 15 years, but Pumbaa's description in this story is accurate. Pumbaa was adorable, and he was a pug. The first thing you'd notice about Pumbaa was that he was a smaller pug than most. That didn't stop him from barking and running with the best of them. Pumbaa was tough. He was known as the throat ripper to his friends. Nonetheless, his diminutive size is probably the first thing you'd notice about him. The second thing you would notice about Pumbaa, the pug, was his thick fur, standing up an inch on every side. It was an even and handsome coat, for he was a handsome pug. The fur was fawn in color and covered his many folds from the tip of his tail to the edges of his velvet black face. The third thing you would notice about Pumbaa, by far the thing he was most self-conscious about, was his wall-eyed stare. Cats, birds, people, and pals all laughed at his wonky eyes in the same way. Combined with his fuzzy fur and small size, it could be said that Pumbaa was a very cute pug. However, inside Pumbaa's little head, behind his wall eyes, brewed radical thoughts of an uncompromising proletariat revolution against the landlords and oligarchs of a fattened bourgeoisie that rode upon their backs. This wasn't always the case, of course. One becomes radicalized, usually slowly at first, then quickly. See, during the day, Pumbaa watched the busy megaplexes cluttering this neon city from the 20th story, floor-to-ceiling windows of his human's cramped hovel. Pumbaa had for many years kept guard while his human slept. Some months ago, though, Pumbaa's human began the graveyard shift at the rat meat cannery in District 5. The consequent 14-hour shifts drained so much joy and energy from his boy that Pumbaa rarely got head scritches anymore. Sometimes, Rory even forgot to feed Pumbaa, falling asleep on the couch instead. This was the final straw for Pumbaa. His rage against this terrible end state of hypercapitalism led him to form a pack of hounds who sabotage, thieve, and assassinate the oligarchs of Megacity. So are you dog enough to do what the tired humans haven't had the focus to do? Pumbaa the Throat Ripper howls his call into the polluted night air. Gather up, a mission of menaces afoot. There you go. There's our introduction. Pumbaa is going to be me. Let's figure out what our mission is, and then now you guys can get your characters in. All right. It's a little chart here for... So, roll or pick on the table below an evil company that benefits from the capitalism and needs to be down by one way. So, we roll 2d4 just to figure out the setup here. D4s are annoying to roll, to be honest. Okay, so we rolled a 2 and a 3. So, the first thing here, that decides this roll, and then 3 is... You can't even read this. Let me zoom in a bit. Three is we need to steal from... Okay. A company that... Number 4 and 2. So, is a pyramid scheme... No, sorry. Number 4 and 2 that sells weapons. So we need to steal from a company that sells weapons. Which, let's find out what that does. Makes people sick. Or damages the environment. Let's go with make people sick. Okay. So we are going to steal from a company that sells weapon, which makes people sick. Mission: steal from a company that makes weapons, which make people sick. Yeah, so we got to figure out, like, well, we don't have to, but a thing that the chat can help with is what kind of weapons are these and so on. How do they make people sick? Dog names in the pack: Swoozy, Riff, Tim, Plunky, and Parsnip. Awesome. Any guard dog could be capitalist, Dobermans, English bulldogs. I mean, English bulldogs, you're halfway there. It's English. And they have that kind of arbitrary grumpiness, like it's mine, who cares about you. Saluki is called Speedy G. Okay, tell me a bit about Speedy G, GS. Pumbaa. So one thing that the game says, like I said, I didn't go through all the rules, but we'll sort of do it, is that your animal has an owner and a name with their owner, their sort of given name, but then they also have their knight, cyberpunk, screw the system name. And I'm assuming Speedy G is that. So Pumbaa the Throat Ripper. If you've ever seen a pug's jaw, too, like, the idea that they could rip out a throat is deeply comical. Plunky and Parsnip are littermates and commonly referred to as the twins. Their areas of specialty are cyber hacking and tennis ball chewing / racketeering. Okay, I like that. He's not the brains, but he's the getaway hound. Oh, excellent. Pumbaa the Throat Ripper realized he could not wait to steal Weapons Co. I'm open to better names, but I'm not getting stuck on names here. To steal Weapons International. I did some exercise, so my sinuses are kind of dry. Give me a second. I don't know about other people. I get really phlegmy when I exercise. Pumbaa the Throat Ripper realized he could not wait to steal Weapons International's biological weapon. Biological menace. This is a bad sentence. We're doing this again. Pumbaa the Throat Ripper knew there was no time left to waste. For weeks, his pack of anti-capitalist hounds had been scoping out Weapons Co. Weapons International, Rory. Enough. Who's like the stealth dog? That's the question. You got a bunch of names there, Big Drew. Is there one that you feel belongs to a stealthy dog? So that could be like, that's who we got the info from. No sticky keys ever. Never bother me about sticky keys again. As a writer, like, you go to like start to write a sentence like 5 times. It's a common thing for me anyways. And oh, that annoying sticky key noise. Okay. Well, I guess you did say Plunky and Parsnip are hackers, so we could start with that. Plunky and Parsnip. The Wonder Spaniels. Plunky and Parsnip, the Wonder Spaniels, had been working on a backdoor hack when they found evidence of a new biological weapon. It was designed to poison enemy waters, eradicate what little greenery they had left, but worst of all, would cause the loss of fur in affected animals. The mere thought of it, such wanton horror, sickened the whole pack of hounds. It was agreed they would have to infiltrate. Third person. It was agreed they would have to infiltrate Swoozy, taking Drew's point here, a debonair poodle, was a charmer and slipped their way into the weapons factory. It was Swoozy who discovered the weapon would be shipped for live service in the Corpo Wars tonight. GS says a little terrier could be the brains. They're small but very bossy. Very sharp and bossy. What kind of terrier? Because obviously there's like quite a few. Oh, I like that, Big Drew. That's in keeping with Border Collie intelligence, right? Riff is the stealth of the group. He's a Border Collie. Well, I mean, Border Collies aren't that stealthy, but we can. No dog is that stealthy, to be completely honest. And he knows his way around electronics. He learned to deactivate bombs by watching his human. He's the fastest around, faster than his human. That I'd believe. Border Collies are smart. A Cairn Terrier, GS says. I've not heard of that. I'll have to look it up. It was Swoozy who discovered the weapon would be shipped for live service in the Corpor Wars tonight. Their timeline moved up suddenly. We simply are not ready. Bart. Riff. The bomb diffusing. Border Collie. His ear was folded up. And he shook his head to let it lie flat. We haven't the resources. And we only have half the blueprints. The Wizard of Oz Terrier was a Cairn. Oh. I don't know why I thought that was like a Yorkshire or something like that. But now that I think about it, I really don't remember that dog very well. Like, I know the dog, and I know it's a small, but like a little black and white dog just is not standing out in my mind. There was another one that was up earlier. That's right. And yet, Pumbaa growled, "We must act. Whether we are ready or not." It's true. Parsnip. I'm gonna forget these names, man. I'm so bad with names. That's nothing against you. Parsnip and Plunky. Whined in unison. We cannot expect this to go well. Who do I see as like the sort of ideologue of the group? You know what? I don't want to get stuck in this conversation. It's already half past. It's true, Parsnip and Plunky. We cannot expect this to go well. But we hacked. But we all saw the test videos from the hack. The stakes are too high. We must infiltrate before it and destroy before it ships. Big Drew says Tim is a Jack Russell Terrier. Ah, now there's a fighter. God, they are destructive. Smart though. but he's also a Cerberus? Oh, like the mythical animal? So he has 3 heads? Hear no evil, speak no evil, see no evil is his mantra, and he rightly so is the head of the outfit, small but merciless. Okay. That's enough. Yipped. Tim. A Jack Russell. With a makeshift prosthetic forepaw. I don't know what else you would call it. With a makeshift prosthetic forepaw. He was fierce in all he did. And this and his bellow this interruption with the bickering of the dog pack was no exception. Others began the doubtful cries again, but again Tim snapped at them. Were this a hostage taking? Or something cautious? I would obviously agree. Caution would benefit us. But this is destruction. Aimless, wanton and complete. And that we can do. I believe it. Besides, what is a world without trees to pee upon? Or the fine tickle of a long terrier coat on the nose when sniffing a butt. This the dog pack nodded in agreement. Tim continued, climbing onto his desk. This is what we stand to lose. Now let's get moving before the weapon does. Big Drew says, when I think of Tim's voice, I hear Dr. Claw from Inspector Gadget. I guess I could see that. Though I gotta be honest, I mean, I'm sure you've heard Jack Russell's. They're not nearly as deep. Okay. This is what we stand to lose. Now let's get moving before the weapon does. Okay, scene change. Any recommendations on the obstacles, because it doesn't really matter. I guess I'll just do it here. So when they arrive, they have to cross a waterway. Okay, let's start with that. I assume this would be sort of like a sewer, like an open sewer, like, not an open sewer, what do they call them? Aqueducts. The aqueduct was swift with brown. Big Drew says Jack Russells are a bit shrill, but not near as piercing as Dachshunds. Or Dachshunds? Yes. Dachshunds are a little hard on the ears. The aqueduct was swift with brown, polluted water. That carried broken mattresses and other nameless trash out to the sea. Dog damn it. Grumbled. Pumbaa grumbled. Sniffling at the sour garbage smell of the water. I think they're called aqueducts, says GS. Or sorry, in response to GS, who's asking what they're called. Pumbaa, yeah, we don't have them in Canada because we do not really have desert environments in Canada, and that's, to my understanding, there for flash flooding that occurs in desert environments. It's a Thursday, so they are flushing the landfill out to sea. This is why we didn't plan to do this on a Thursday. Okay. So, that means I gotta roll a dice. To see if they succeed at getting across this, and if they don't fully succeed, then, you know, what it looks like. Okay, so the highest I rolled was a 2. I don't think that's gonna work. Partial failure. You don't get what you want. I think don't get worse. So, GS says culvert. Isn't culvert a natural thing? Big Drew says aqueducts are what Rory's talking about, but we don't flush them out to sea. No, I wouldn't think you did. This is like my cyberpunk version of this world where they just flush garbage out to sea. Because this is about dogs who are owned by people who live in a kind of dystopian capitalist setting, and the dogs at night, while humans are away working or sleeping, are disassembling human organizations. That's the idea of it. This is why we didn't plan to do this on a Thursday. What What was the name of the Plunky and Parsnip? Plunky and Parsnip dragged out their laptops, then nosed them open. And began typing with a combination of their nose. This is a run-on sentence I'm going to start in a bit differently. Nose them open. They began typing with a combination of their nose, tongue, and 2 forepaws. I guess there's only 2 forepaws. After a moment, they announced that they had the signal, so they would stay put on this side of the garbage river. Big Drew says, culverts allow streams to pass under a roadway where there is no bridge. Yeah, I mean, we have... the reason why they exist, though, the reason why they even need to, like, define that path is because of how deserts flood. If you've ever seen, what are they called? Vitruvian? Something like that. The fans on desert mountains. It's a good visual example of the way that water does not really... It just kind of sails over top of the hard pack that you get in deserts. We don't really have that here because, especially where I live, is technically a rainforest. It's the only rainforest of this type in the world. Although I don't think people associate it as a rainforest, but it is. So they would stay put on this side of the garbage river and on comms. Pumbaa, Tim, who was my third? Oh, and the bomb guy. Riff, that was his name. Pumbaa, Tim, and Riff pushed on. They were the paws on the ground. They couldn't do the dark things. They had to, from a distance, like the twins. I think, how do you guys think they should try to cross the river? Because they're not gonna fully succeed. I guess the garbage. They began a makeshift plan of tying a hunk of mattress to the base of a bridge, then throwing on and snagging another broken cabinet atop the swift, toxic flow. They had some success. But in the last... Oh. But in the last third, when the fences were in sight, Tim leapt ahead. Big Drew says, I chose Golden Spaniel? Is that or German Shepherd? Is that what you're saying? Oh, German short-haired pointer. When the team meets trouble, Siren, a German short-haired pointer, will show up with a helicopter to rescue the team. I like this. Because they're bird dogs. Tim leapt ahead. A bit too eager. The old plywood he landed on was laminate and slick. It was quick. It was a quick flip of the whole thing when he landed. And then he was gone. Tim! Riff barked down the stream. But Pumbaa quickly tackled him and muffled his shouts. Pumbaa, you'll alert the guards. Riff, Pumbaa said, pointing up towards the fences. We have to get him, growled Riff. No, said Pumbaa. Pumbaa. The throat ripper said, it's not what he would have wanted. Besides, he's a survivor. He's a jacked Russell Terrier. Riff relented, and the dogs pulled themselves to shore. All right. Tragedy with our anti-capitalist dogs so far. Let's see what our next problem is. Well, that's interesting. There's background noise. Okay. The winds of the treeless outer bounds were sweeping up the river and into the city. The loud banging of half-broken neon signs, gates, and tumbling garbage. Let's check something. Okay, that's a 3. 3 is a partial success, but you get what you want, but things get complicated. So they're going to climb the fence and get into the factory, guys. What's the complication in that? Covered. They're leaping over the outer fence. It was a dangerous game of stop and go in the shadows, dodging the guards, flashlights, and roaming. Luckily, Swoozy's intel on the busted second-story window paid off. I like that, Big Drew. Big Drew says, when the gang disbands after a job well done, they return home and grab the morning paper before going inside. Oh, that was a good point, but I'm past the fence now, so I think I can still use it, though. Big Drew, barbed wire on top of the fence, doggy danger. We could say that they knew the window was busted, though, so they get in and they have to sort of push the barbed wire out of the way, and maybe that makes noise and puts them on alert. Swoozy's intel on the busted second-story window paid off. In part. Well, it was accessible from a stack of old barrels. People are going to think of wood, so rusting barrels inside the window. They had left a coil of barbed wire. Unfortunately, Holly's House says, oh man, I missed a good one. I think we'll go long. I wouldn't worry about it, Holly, if you want to. We're in a cyberpunk world. Dogs go out at night in gangs to dismantle capitalism. They are trying to stop the shipment of a biological weapon that destroys vegetation and causes animal hair to fall out, which is really the thing they're most concerned with. We currently have on hacking a twin set of, I think it was Spaniels, who are on comms, but we lost the Jack Russell Terrier in the aqueduct, Swift Aqueduct stream on the way in, and they've just climbed the fences and they're getting into the factory, which they are going to try and stop the shipment of this biological weapon. And by them, it's Pumbaa the Pug, who's called Pumbaa the Throat Ripper, and Riff the Border Collie, who's very good with bombs. Inside the window, they had left a coil of barbed wire. Fortunately for the hounds, it was not well secured. Unfortunately for the hounds, when they got it loose, taking some wounds, in the doing of that, it fell noisily to the floor 2 stories below. The pug and the collie were able to get in, but now things were tense. They could see the shipment was nearly loaded on the boat. And the guards were double cautious after finding the barbed wire stained with fresh blood. Holly's House says Pumbaa the Throat Ripper. Pumbaa was only good at digging. That's true. He was good at digging. I just like the idea of that tiny little mouth trying to... The other thing that Pumbaa had going was his jaw was crooked. So it caused his tongue to always stick out a little bit on the side. So he was wall-eyed. He had a little tongue out the side. It was very charming. Okay. We are too late, said Riff mournfully. The boat will leave soon, and the guards are everywhere. We can't make it. We are too late, said Riff mournfully. The boat will leave soon and the guards are everywhere. We can't make it. Okay, so that means we need some sort of obstacle. Also, what are they going to do? I mean, what do you guys think is the right plan for dealing with this ship of biological weapons? Well, that's an interesting point, Big Drew. I like that idea. Maybe one of the guard dogs in here can be made sympathetic. Okay. Gonna roll our dice. Let's see if they succeed. It's 2 3s, which means success with a complication. Look. Throat Ripper said. Isn't that Beatrice? Isn't that Beatrice? He nosed towards a black and white, sleek lady Boston Terrier. Who tread the catwalks above Oh, I like that, Big Drew. She comes out from her little hut. Yeah. Okay. He nose towards a black and white, sleek lady Boston Terrier who tread the catwalks above the boat. Is this her job? Holly So says, Eddie. I was gonna suggest Eddie as a guard. Well, we can add Eddie. Isn't that Eddie? Is this his job? The one he said he could raise his pups on. Some job this is. He should be ashamed. Riff scolded. Ever the optimistic moral core of the pack. But Pumbaa shook his head. Nay. We cannot blame the worker for working instead of starving. Besides, Eddie has definitely smelled us. His nose is sharp. And yet, he does not howl. Holly's house says, I can't get up. Rosie is on my chest. Is Rosie your dog? And if so, is it like a cat? Because Smudge, when he lies on my chest, if I need to get up and move him, no matter how gently I do it, it hurts his feelings and he gets very offended. Eddie has definitely smelled us. His nose is sharp, and yet he does not howl. Let's meet him. Riff did not like this, but he followed. Pumbaa was persuasive. Not just because Pumbaa was persuasive, but not just because of the... Rosie is a tubby pug. One day my corpse will be found this way. Aww. But he followed. Pumbaa was persuasive, but not just... and not just because of the throat ripping. Eddie met them above the boat. The last of the crates were being dragged in by the guards, and the ship's engines were kicking to life. Breathlessly, Pumbaa and Riff explained to a shocked Eddie the scope of the damage the weapon would do. He ended this explanation with an emphasis that all dogs would be hairless soon after this weapon dropped. Eddie was clearly conflicted. Without words, he simply nodded and turned to walk away. He wasn't prepared to act. He had pups, after all. But he wasn't prepared to defend the horrors below. The boat was beginning to move. There was no time for subtlety. Okay, we're almost done here, guys. I think I see an end in sight. The boys leapt from the catwalk, and a hail of gunfire pinned them down. On the deck. But the boat was too far from the dock to make a swift return. They had a small window of time to destroy the menace. Riff was the bomb man. He said he needed only time to prep the explosive for the hull. The guards on the boat. We're approaching, though. Time, Pumbaa said. I think the throat ripper can buy you time. He winked. Okay, let's see how he does. This is like a joke for just me. Yeah. I have the roll results, but I'm going to put them into the story. And began a fierce battle against confused men. The small, fluffy pug tore out throat after throat. Of the many guards for this foul corporation. He cried heroically, "Even I don't lick the boots this much." And viva la pug illusion. I see that chat has come up with an ending, so I guess I will acquiesce to chat's ending. It's definitely clever. Until he was surrounded by pale guards, cautiously targeting their rifles at him atop the pile of corpses he had made. But there was no escape. With a nod and a tear in his eye, Riff set off his explosion. Alas, though, not all was lost. For as it turns out, Riff grabbed some bottle rockets instead of TNT, which looked the same, but were different colors. That he couldn't see because he was a dog. as the bottle rockets sputtered about the deck. They did manage to burst the tank with the terrible weapons. Those aboard the ship both Pumbaa and Riff became tragically hairless. However, as it spread on the winds, it turned out to be pretty ineffective at what the lab tests had shown. In the confusion, both dogs leapt from the boat into the swift river. They were pulled out downstream by a stinking, wet, but ever perky Jack Russell. Big Drew says, what if we wrote a book together over the course of several weeks together? So the thing that I've noticed, I did try some things like that before. The thing that I've noticed is that people's interest across episodes simply isn't there. If you do a part 2 of anything, you half your audience. And when you get to part 3, you half it again. And when my audience is as small as it is, I realize that I am pushing my luck. I told you, Riff. Pumbaa said with a half smile. But there's also the fact that, man, books are hard. Like, what we're doing here, it's not easy. It's not easy to come up with a sort of 3-act plot with a conclusion and lots of random prompts and stuff as it is. But books, man, you gotta think. And books require you to do, like, a lot of going back and editing. And first drafts of books are way worse usually than first drafts of short stories, essentially, what we do here. So I feel like there might be a way to do it as, like, we each write our own thing each week as, like, a accountability thing. But I don't know how much I would make that an entertaining stream. Holly's House says, that's my dream. Tales from the Varietal live chat writings from a chaotic collective unconscious. Yeah, we were at page, I don't know, 532, I think it is. Let's just give the cap on this. In the weeks that followed, the two dogs' hair, unfortunately, well, hair did not grow back. Unfortunately. However, an advertisement, and this is from Holly's House's recommendation here, an advertisement from Weapons International hair removal system went up near Pumbaa's 20th story window. He couldn't help but smile and plot for his next revolutionary act. Oh yeah, good point, dog fur. Thanks for that, GS. Dog hair, better known as dog fur. This is gonna take a minute to read, isn't it? Jesus. Okay. Well, we'll read it, and then we'll cap it. And I have been indulgent on my birthday show. Because that's kind of what I do every year. I just sort of indulge myself on my birthday. Victor says, weaponize yourself against bad hair. Oh, that's good. I don't want to scroll all the way down. I'll see if I remember when I get to it. Okay, if you're jumping ahead, well, this was an extra long episode, but also it was my birthday show, so I'm going to do what I want. We were playing a game called Daggers and Dalmatians. It's a one-page tabletop RPG meant for 2 to 5 players, but we were playing it alone with prompts from Blades in the Dark, and if none of that means anything to you, it doesn't matter. It just means that some of this stuff was a result of dice rolls. It's the story of a bunch of cyberpunk dogs trying to take down capitalism. So we'll read that story now. The first thing you'd notice about Pumbaa was that he was a smaller pug than most. That didn't stop him from barking and running with the best of them. Pumbaa was tough. He was known as the Throat Ripper. To his friends. Nonetheless, his diminutive size is probably the first thing you'd notice about him. The second thing you would notice about Pumbaa the pug was his thick fur, standing up an inch on every side. It was an even, handsome coat, for he was a handsome pug. The fur was fawn in color and covered over his many folds, from the tip of his tail to the edges of his velvet black face. The third thing you would notice about Pumbaa, by far the thing he was most self-conscious about, was his wall-eyed stare. Cats, birds, people, and pals all laughed at his wonky eyes in the same way. Combined with his fuzzy fur and small size, it could be said that Pumbaa was a very cute pug. Oh no. I lost my window. Give me a second. However, inside his little head, behind his wall eyes, brewed radical thoughts of an uncompromising proletariat revolution against the landlords and oligarchs of a fattened bourgeoisie that rode upon their backs. This wasn't always the case, of course. One becomes radicalized, usually slowly at first, then quickly. See, during the day, Pumbaa watched the busy megaplexes cluttering this neon city from the 20th story floor-to-ceiling window of his human's cramped hovel. Pumbaa had, for many years, kept guard while his humans slept. Some months ago, Pumbaa's human began to work the graveyard shift at the rat meat cannery in District 5. The consequent 14-hour shifts drained so much joy and energy from his boy that Pumbaa rarely got head scritches anymore. And sometimes Rory even forgot to feed Pumbaa, falling asleep on the couch instead. This was the final straw for Pumbaa. His rage against this terrible end state of hypercapitalism led him to form a pack of hounds who sabotage, thieve, and assassinate the oligarchs of the megacity. So are you dog enough to do what the tired humans haven't had the focus to do? Pumbaa the Throat Ripper howls his call into the polluted night air. Gather up. A mission of menace is afoot. Specifically, they needed to steal, this was based on rolls, from a company that makes weapons which make people sick. Pumbaa the Throat Ripper knew there was no time left to waste. For weeks, his pack of anti-capitalist hounds had been scoping out Weapons International. Plunky and Parsnip, the Wonder Spaniels, had been working on a backdoor hack when they found evidence of a new biological weapon. It was designed to poison enemy waters, eradicate what little greenery they had left, but worst of all, would cause the loss of fur in affected animals. The mere thought of such wanton horror sickened the whole pack of hounds. It was agreed they would have to infiltrate. Swoozy, a debonair poodle, was a charmer that slipped their way into the weapons factory. It was Swoozy who discovered the weapon would be shipped for live service in the Corpo Wars that night. Their timeline moved up suddenly. "We simply are not ready," barked Riff, the bomb-diffusing border collie. His ear was folded up, so he shook his head to let it lie flat. "We haven't the resources, and we only have half the blueprints. And yet," Pumbaa growled, "we must act, whether we are ready or not." "It's true," Parsnip and Plunky whined in unison. "We cannot expect this to go well, but we all saw the test videos from the hack. The stakes are too high. We must infiltrate and destroy it before it ships." "That's enough!" yipped Tim, a Jack Russell with a makeshift prosthetic forepaw. He was fierce in all he did, and his interruption with the bickering of the dog pack was no exception. Others began the doubtful cries again, but again Tim snapped at them. "Were this a hostage-taking or something cautious, I would obviously agree. Caution would benefit us, but this is destruction wanton and complete, and that we can do. I believe it. Besides, what is a world without trees to pee upon, or the fine tickle of a long terrier coat on the nose when sniffing a butt?" The dog pack nodded in agreement. Tim continued, climbing onto his desk. "This is what we stand to lose. Now let's get moving before the weapon does." The aqueduct between them and the plant was swift with brown polluted water that carried broken mattresses and other nameless trash out to the sea. "Dog damn it," Pumbaa grumbled, sniffling at the sour smell of the water. "It's a Thursday, so they are flushing the landfill out to sea. This is why we didn't plan to do this on a Thursday." Plunky and Parsnip dragged out their laptops, then nosed them open. They began typing with a combination of their nose, tongue, and forepaws. After a moment, they announced that they had the signal. So they would stay put on this side of the river, Garbage River, and on comms. Pumbaa, Tim, and Riff pushed on. They were the paws on the ground. They couldn't do the dark things they had to do from a distance like the twins. They began a makeshift plan of tying a hunk of mattress to the base of a bridge, then throwing another rope on and snagging another broken cabinet atop the swift toxic flow that floated atop the swift toxic flow. They had some success with this, but in the last third, when the fences were in sight, Tim leapt ahead a bit too eager. The old plywood he landed on was laminate and slick. It was a quick flip of the whole thing when he landed, and then he was gone. "Tim!" Riff barked down the stream, but Pumbaa quickly tackled him and muffled his shouts. "You'll alert the guards, Riff," Pumbaa said, pointing up towards the fences. "We have to get him," growled Riff. "No," Pumbaa the Throat Ripper said. "It's not what he would have wanted. Besides, he's a survivor. He's a jacked Russell Terrier." Riff relented, and the dogs pulled themselves to shore. The winds of the treeless outer bounds were sweeping up the river and into the city. The loud banging of half-broken neon signs, gates, and tumbling garbage covered them, leaping over the outer fence. It was a dangerous game of stop and go in the shadows, dodging the guards' flashlights and roaming. Luckily, Swoozy's intel on the busted second-story window paid off, in part. While it was accessible from a stack of rusting barrels, inside the window they had left a coil of barbed wire. Fortunately for the hounds, it was not well secured. Unfortunately for the hounds, when they got it loose, taking some wounds in the doing of that, it fell noisily to the floor 2 stories below. The pug and the collie were able to get in, but now things were tense. They could see the shipment was nearly loaded on the boat, and the guards now were double cautious after finding the barbed wire on the floor, stained with fresh blood. "We are too late," said Riff mournfully. The boat will leave soon, and the guards are everywhere. We can't make it. Look, Throat Ripper said. Isn't that Eddie? He nosed towards a black and white sleek Boston Terrier who tread across the catwalks above the boat towards them. Is this his job? The one he said he could raise his pups on? Some job this is. He should be ashamed, Riff scolded, ever the optimistic moral core of the pack. But Pumbaa shook his head. Nay, we cannot blame the worker for working instead of starving. Besides, Eddie has definitely smelled us. His nose is sharp, and yet he does not howl. Let's meet him. Riff did not like this, but he followed. Pumbaa was persuasive, and not just because of the throat ripping. I forgot that line. Eddie met them above the boat. The last of the crates were being dragged in by the guards, and the ship's engines were kicking to life. Breathlessly, Pumbaa and Riff explained to a shocked Eddie the scope of the damage the weapon would do. He ended this explanation with an emphasis that all dogs would be hairless soon after this weapon dropped. Eddie was clearly conflicted. Without words, he simply nodded and turned to walk away. He wasn't prepared to act. He had pups, after all, but he wasn't prepared to defend the horrors below. The boat was beginning to move. There was no time for subtlety. The boys leapt from the catwalk, and a hail of gunfire pinned them down on the deck, but the boat was too far from the dock to make a swift return at that point. They had a small window of time to destroy the menace. Riff was the bomb dog. I said bomb man, bomb dog. He said he needed only time to prep the explosive for the hull. The guards on the boat were approaching, though. Time, Pumbaa said. I think the Throat Ripper can buy you time. He winked and began a fierce battle against confused men. The small, fluffy bug tore out throat after throat of the many guards for this foul corporation. He cried heroically, Even I don't lick the boots this much, and viva la Pugolution! Until he was surrounded by pale and fearful guards, cautiously targeting their rifles at him where he stood atop the pile of corpses he had made. But there was no escape. With a nod and a tear in his eye, Riff set off his explosion. Alas, though, not all was lost. For as it turns out, Riff grabbed some bottle rockets instead of TNT, which looked the same but were different colors that of course he couldn't see because he was a dog. Anyways, as the bottle rockets sputtered about the deck, they managed to burst the tank with the terrible weapon. Those aboard the ship, both Pumbaa and Riff, became tragically hairless. However, as it spread on the winds, it turned out to be pretty ineffective at what the lab tests had shown. In the confusion, both dogs leapt from the boat into the swift river. They were pulled out downstream by a stinking wet but ever-perky Jack Russell Tim. By the stinking wet but ever-perky Jack Russell Tim. I told you, Riff, Pumbaa said, with half a smile. In the weeks that followed, the two dogs' fur did not grow back, unfortunately. However, an advertisement for Weapons International hair removal system, which had the campaign line, "Weaponize yourself against bad hair," went up near Pumbaa's 20th story window. He couldn't help but smile and plot for his next revolutionary act. All right. Well, happy birthday to me. I see, yeah, lots of people saying happy birthday. Thanks for those who stuck around for this extra long show. If you want to try this game yourself, I will have it in a pinned comment below. Again, it's called Daggers and Dalmatians. It's single page, super easy. It is technically not a solo RPG, but I think it worked as one. And obviously, if you have more than an hour and a half to play with and multiple people at the table, you could probably get a lot more done. But I enjoyed wasting this time, and I hope you did too. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. Get out. You know what? It's my birthday. You don't have to get out. You can hang out and drink punch. GS, Big Drew, Holly's house, and anybody else who's lurking. Thank you so much for getting us over 100 subs. I'll try to do something better. Tuesday is the 2-year anniversary of Fireside Fairy Tales. I don't know that I'm going to do anything that unique for it because I don't know if I have any ideas. But input was great tonight. Thank you very much, guys. And say goodbye to the many pugs of Rory. Okay, I changed my mind. Now get out of my shop.